A federal judge ordered former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to report to prison by July 1st to serve his 4-month prison sentence. Bannon was hoping to stay out of prison as he appealed his conviction for contempt of Congress.
Attorney General Eric Holder is the first cabinet member ever to be held in contempt of Congress.
Well, the D.C. double standard is on full display again, this time with an order to Steve Bannon that he has to go to prison by July 1st because he dared to defy a subpoena from the January 6th committee.
Well, it seemed like a big surprise to Steve Bannon and his attorneys that federal judge Carl Nichols said that Steve Bannon will have to begin serving his sentence. He has to self-surrender by July 1st. Remember, it was July of 2022 that Steve Bannon was found guilty of 2 counts of contempt of Congress by a jury. The judge that year sentenced him to 4 months behind bars, but said he could stay free pending an appeal of his conviction. Well, they discussed that appeal in the hearing today, and the judge said, look, the appeals court wholeheartedly disagreed with the legal arguments that Bannon and his team were making. He said he was not going to put off this sentence any longer, and he said it's time for Steve Bannon to report to prison. And there was a heated moment at the end of this hearing where Steve Bannon's attorney was sort of trying to urge the judge to reconsider. The judge was not very pleased with how that exchange was going, how he was being talked to.
There are multiple examples of people defying subpoenas and having nothing happen to them while others are charged. It's completely up to the discretion of the DOJ, and you know how that goes. The most ironic and hypocritical part about all of this is that Merrick Garland, the Attorney General who ultimately decided to bring these charges against Bannon, is currently defying a congressional subpoena and could be held in contempt of Congress, which obviously nothing would come of that. In the same way that Eric Holder defied subpoenas about Fast and Furious, and then absolutely nothing happened. Now, this is definitely not the weaponization of the Justice Department or a political prosecution, and I know this because CNN told me so.
This is very much directly related to what we were talking about before the break, which is the claims of the weaponization of the Biden Justice Department, which there is absolutely no evidence to back up.
One thing I want to make a note of is that if Bannon goes to prison on July 1st, that would put him getting released just days before Election Day, or as we now refer to it, Election Month, which means they are taking out one of the biggest pro-Trump voices during the most important time in the election cycle. So since this is definitely not political and there's absolutely nothing to that claim, here's a look at the recent history of the not political contempt of Congress, followed by the comments of Steve Bannon after he came out of the hearing.
A federal jury has found former Trump advisor Steve Bannon guilty on 2 counts of contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with subpoenas from the January 6th committee. Bannon faces up to 1 year in prison for each count, along with a $100,000 fine. His attorney said they will appeal.
Former President Donald Trump's trade advisor was convicted of contempt of Congress today. Peter Navarro was found guilty of defying a subpoena from the House committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Navarro has said he was protected by executive privilege, but the judge denied that defense, saying Navarro had not presented proof of that. Navarro could face up to a year in prison when sentenced. He's planning to appeal his conviction.
Today, a tense showdown on Capitol Hill. A House committee has threatened to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. The hearing, which started this morning, is in recess right now. Now, the committee wants Holder to provide documents on a botched federal sting operation that let weapons fall into the hands of Mexican drug gangs. Earlier today, President Obama stepped in and asserted executive privilege over the documents. The move means the Department of Justice can withhold sensitive and classified documents.
This morning, Attorney General Eric Holder is the first cabinet member ever to be held in contempt of Congress. More than 100 Democrats boycotted Thursday's House vote as African-American lawmakers led a walkout. Republicans have pressed Holder to hand over all documents related to the Fast and Furious gun tracking operation, which was first exposed by CBS News.
In late 2009, ATF agents in Phoenix noticed a flurry of gun purchases in the United States by suspected traffickers from Mexican drug cartels, including giant .50 caliber rifles. But instead of stopping the weapons, agents say their superiors ordered them to let the guns cross the border. It's called gun walking, to see where they ended up and see if they would lead to a major drug cartel leader. Agents videotaped suspected dealers from Mexican drug cartels buying weapons. The case grew to include thousands of weapons. Then, in December 2010, 2 Fast and Furious rifles turned up at the murder of a Border Patrol agent in Arizona, Brian Terry. The Justice Department publicly insisted no gun walking had gone on. That denial prompted one of the lead agents on the case, John Dodson, to step forward and speak to CBS News.
Here I am. Tell me I didn't do the things that I did. Tell me you didn't order me to do the things that I did. Tell me it didn't happen. Now you have a name on it, you have a face to put with it. Here I am, someone now. Tell me it didn't happen.
CBS News learned there were other alleged gun-walking operations dating back to the Bush administration in 2005. No drug kingpins were ever arrested, but the drug cartels became well-armed. Records obtained by CBS News show the weapons were used in a U.S. immigration agent's murder last year in Mexico. They were also used by drug cartels that assassinated a Mexican official's brother and attacked 2 Mexican government helicopters. Many of these guns will be on the street for years to come.
According to the Justice Department, any so-called gun-walking operations have now been stopped. Holder issued an internal directive after the story broke, saying, quote, "We should not design or conduct undercover operations, which include guns crossing the border."
We had great lawyers, and we're going to go all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to, but I want to say something specifically about the Justice Department. Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, the entire Justice Department, they're not going to shut up Trump. They're not going to shut up Navarro. They're not going to shut up Bannon, and they're certainly not going to shut up MAGA. If you look right here, you reporters, in the 2.5 or 3 years we've been here, look at the rise of MAGA, look at the rise of Donald Trump. If the election was held today, according to Harry Enton over at CNN, President Trump would win in a landslide. All of this, besides the major legal issues that have to be addressed, all of this is about one thing. This is about shutting down the MAGA movement, shutting down grassroots conservatives, shutting down President Trump. Not only are we winning, we are going to prevail, and every number and every poll shows that. There's nothing that can shut me up and nothing that will shut me up. There's not a prison built or a jail built that will ever shut me up. All victory to MAGA. We're going to win this. We're going to win at the Supreme Court, and more importantly, we're going to win on November 5th in an amazing landslide with the Senate, the House, and also Donald J. Trump back as President of the United States. Thank you very much.